Hello YouTube friends, coming at you with something a little different today. Only once before have I introduced with a covering on it, because I just wanted to give a little info first. This is probably one of the most famous extinct animals. This is from a very early point in my collection where I have a bunch of cool rectangular display cases, and at that point I didn't know how far I was going to get into it, and I figured it would be a nice way to display them, and it is. It's just nowhere near enough for my collection now. So let me just get right to it. This has multiple things in it, but you may already see what I'm obviously going to be bringing up. Doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. Megalodon. Okay, now, first, elephant in the room. This is a fake, and I'm going to do an entire video on fakes, especially Moroccan fakes, because there is such a huge business on it, and anybody who collects fossils and buys stuff from Morocco is gonna get fakes. The only way around it is to discuss every piece that you're going to get with experts ahead of time and get their information and find out. But what you can do is, even though you can't always tell what's real, you can learn to tell what is fake. You see what I'm saying? Like, you can't always say, oh, well, that one's real, that one's real, that one's real. But you can say that one's fake, that one's fake, that yada, yada, yada. A whole video worth, because it is such a major thing. I even went to I dug through it just to prove that there was no actual bone here, which it's supposed to be the jaw bones. It's just other matrix. So anyway, that aside, these I siliconed into place. Very easy to remove. Got it off the back. I mean, I can easily just pull that off, but I could just also glue it right back on it. Let me bring this down some. This is actually the second attempt at this that I'm making, because the first one, it turns out, I did it like this, so it was cut off. The teeth were cut off through the entire thing almost. Okay, so first things first. Well, let me start by saying that this is a very small Megalodon tooth. They get much smaller than this. They get great white shark size and smaller. But for a full Megalodon shark tooth, this is a small one. 7 inches is about an average large size, and those guys can 4 figures easily. Wait. Not including the cents. So, I mean in the thousands is what I'm saying. They're also very cool looking. Just look up cool Megalodon tooth, and you will see how unique and cool and colorful and patternful and all kinds of things they are. It's really something to check out. Some of them look like they have lightning going through them. Very, 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 very cool. And they fossilize so beautifully. Not all of them have it. You can always feel the serrations, but some of them, like this one and this one, they are fossilized so perfectly down to such a small level that you can easily cut yourself on the serrations. If I pushed and pulled down like that, I would have a gash in my finger. They are very, very dangerous still, even without that horrific head jamming them onto you. Okay, so yeah, let's start from the other elephant in the room. These are dead, plain and simple. Megalodons do not exist anymore. There is argument as to when they died exactly. Some people say 1 million and change, which I think would be cool because that would mean that our ancestors could have seen them. Like, imagine one standing on like the edge of a cliff looking out to sea and then seeing this massive fin. Like, that's just a cool thought. But I think the general consensus leans more towards 3 million years, 3.5 million years. So our ancestors wouldn't be seeing them. And they definitely wouldn't be out in boats or anything like that. But regardless, the fact is that they are dead and gone and have been for millions of years. Megalodon were near shore, top of the water, surface feeders, surface livers. They were not meant for going deep in the sea. They could not be hiding there today. They just were not made for it. Back then they couldn't have done it. They couldn't hunt down there. They couldn't chase food down there. They couldn't hide down there. And so they sure as hell still they still could not be doing that now. They were chased out. I mean, some people say that they were outcompeted, which may have contributed some, but that part is insignificant because it would have made no difference. The climate change, that's what did it. Even if something else was eating all their food, who cares? They were done for. The whales that could go into the polar regions left, and that was the majority of their food. Very few whales stayed, and the ones that did, the amount of animals going for them was, I mean, there's the out competition right there. So, no. I'm very sorry to burst your bubble. They're dead. And there has not been a tooth found that says that, or that dates to like just tens of thousands of years ago or something like that. That was very, very quickly debunked. So, and when you hear things like that, don't just jump on that and be like, oh, did you hear this? That means they're there. Look at it as it probably is. Look at it and say, well, if it's real, it's going to be found out as real. So first thing you want to do is you want to try and debunk it, because that's the only way to find out if it's real, is to try and debunk it and not be able to debunk it. So you always want to try and debunk something. I mean, I know that's hard to do because you want it to be real, so you want to fight for it to be real, so you want to fight people trying to debunk it. But the only way it's going to be real is if it can't be debunked. So that's how you got to do it. Now, these guys, very cool. These used to be in the Lamnidae family, which was Carcharodon. So these were Carcharodon Megalodon, which was basically great white. And the reason was because their teeth look exactly like large great white shark teeth. Heavy quotes there because that's ridiculous. I was 2 years old and I knew that was ridiculous. Sure, they hold some very, very similar aspects, but every time they showed it on TV and in the programs and everything, they're like, look, like they look so same. Like, no, are you joking? Is there something you can't see, or am I partially blind? Like, no, they don't look the same. They have very good similarities, but the amount of differences that they have between the teeth that they're showing are more than significant enough that they will use other teeth and make them completely different genus and families over those differences. And then they're just ignoring them completely here because it's a bias, because they want it to. They want it to be a great white shark, a giant great white, and that's all there is to it, so they're fighting for it. But they finally accepted that that's ridiculous. And it is in the Otodontidae family. It is Otodos Megalodon, which Otodos are megatooth sharks, which name fits perfectly. The coolest thing about that is, pardon me, we now know, we now have no idea what they really truly look like. We didn't before either, but when we assumed that they were basically just large great white sharks, we could assume that they looked like large great white sharks. But they're not now, and so they don't. So we do not know what these guys look like, and that is very cool. I've heard lots of speculation. One of the weird speculations I've heard is that maybe they look like sand tiger sharks. I find that a little far-fetched, and I don't think people saying that are saying that totally seriously. I believe they're saying it like tongue-in-cheek, like to make a point. Like we know so little that they might as well be sand tiger shark looking. They might look like whale sharks. I mean, not whale sharks because they eat, but might look like bull sharks. Might look like sleeper sharks. They might be slow swimming. I mean, we know they eat whales, so we know they have to have this speed and so on. So it's just very cool to find out something that we thought we knew so much about. We just had like the entire report ripped away explaining what they are and what they look like and so on, and now we're back with just page 1. Very cool to me. We just don't know what they look like. There's a video I found very cool on YouTube. I'm gonna really try and find it. I'm gonna apologize now because I very well may not find it, but it's about this subject exactly, and the thumbnail is a beautiful picture of a speculative megalodon. It's not some crazy looking shark that they're making. Like, everybody knows these aren't going to be some like off the wall thing. They're still sharks. They're still, like, we know what other otodus sharks look like. So it's not going to be some bizarre like alien looking thing. But it's just going to look different from great whites. And in this picture, it has a very rounded, blunt snout. Eyes, I think the eyes were far forward. It's different enough that when you see it, you're like, huh. I mean, it just really makes you think. It's very cool. So I will really try and find that and put that in there, because it's definitely worth reading. I mean, well, watching. So, now another thing, people, this is relatively recently too. When I say relatively recently, I mean at least 10 years. But everybody thought that these were the apex predator of their time, but they were not. In certain areas they were, and maybe for periods of time they were, but there was a whale, a nasty, violent, vicious whale, spelled differently, different spellings, but I have read in multiple cases that while the spelling does not fit the pronunciation is actually Leviathan, like the biblical Leviathan. Even though it is spelled Levitan or Leviathan, it is not actually pronounced Levitan, Leviathan. It is still pronounced Leviathan. I'm not going to bet all my money on that. I know I've read that in multiple cases, and so I do wholeheartedly believe that. But just because I wholeheartedly believe something does not mean I'm right. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, and look into it and find out for yourself. It's not too hard. Just look up like pronunciation, and then look it up like on a few different sites, pronunciation, and see if any of them say, because some, you know, blah blah blah. You always want to get multiple sources of information for anything you're looking up. But these guys were vicious, about the same size, slightly smaller maybe. They were like sperm whales. I believe they had the largest teeth of any whale of any time. Nasty, nasty, nasty giant pegs. And off the top of my head, I don't know if they were pack hunters. Even if they weren't, these guys definitely would have gone toe-to-toe with Megalodon. If they were pack hunters, then it's a fair assumption that Megalodon was just flat out their prey. It's crazy to think about that. And it's also crazy to think about how quickly our knowledge of some things go around. Megalodon, one of the top predators of all time, nothing could have been one of the craziest things of the entire history of the planet. Boom, then one day we find something that turns it into food. Paleontology is mind-blowing. It's so much fun and so frustrating at the same time. I don't know. I mean, it's what's so cool about it. And part of the frustration is knowing that not only when we find something that turns everything on its head, but that we know we're not going to find lots of the things that are going to turn everything on its head. So much we're never going to know. So much of our info is wrong without us knowing it. There's so many animals that could be by far the coolest animals that have ever existed that we will never know of because they just didn't fossilize well, or we just didn't find their fossils. Very sad. It's very sad, very depressing, but it's just something I try not to think about it too much, and to try and think about the really cool stuff, like what can happen at any moment. Like we suddenly found ichthyosaurs that could get bigger than blue whales, probably. Like, just, and it comes down to one day. One day you wake up and you see an article on online like ichthyosaur bigger than blue whale, or whale that ate jaws. Like, I mean, comes down to you just waking up one day and the story being there. And that's for us. I mean, for the people actually doing this, it comes down to just like one swing of the hammer and uncovering something crazy. So it's just an amazing science, and I have nothing but respect for all the people who do that. I wish there was more out there. I wish there was more funding for it. Just imagine all the other stuff that we could find out and that we would know. I'm getting off track here, but I guess that was kind of a good place to tangent, talking about the Leviathan coming up out of nowhere, which is probably how it hunted. Probably very similar to Megalodon, probably underneath and shot up. Unless it was a pack hunter, in which case they probably did the orca deal. So this is my minuscule Megalodon collection. I wanted to make sure I had one full tooth. All I could afford was a small one. I'm very happy. These two, they're kind of blah, but I do appreciate them for how well these serrations have held up. And then these two, even though they're partials, they still just look really cool to me for some reason. So, I know all of you know about Megalodon to some extent. Heard of it, heard of the controversies. I'm sure any of you that believed Megalodon was still alive are still going to believe Megalodon's still alive. It's very hard to just suddenly turn your back on your belief, so I understand not wanting to just suddenly listen to me. Like, you just got to do enough research and do it for yourself and find out. Which I hope you'll do. I hope, and that's the way to do anything in life in general. Find out for yourself. Don't listen to me. Let me point you in the direction of things to look up, and then you look up yourself. And a big thing, especially these days, is you got to make sure you're careful where you look. Got to make sure you're not looking at biased sites. Then that can be one of the hardest things to do, and I'm not making a video about that. That in some cases is just common sense. I'm sure there's also videos out there that can help you avoid bias in unbiased videos and so on. That's just not my purpose here, so I'm not going to do that. But do that. Look into that and be smart. Be smart yourself, okay? Think of it for yourself. Come up with your own conclusion. Don't have other people tell you, okay? Even though I am telling you that they don't exist anymore. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you watching this. I hope you guys will leave me some likes. That it really would make a big deal. It would help out a lot. Some more subscriptions would be great. It would be fantastic. And I still may not be doing videos very common right now, but I'm not giving up, and don't give up on me, please. And I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you.